You know what really worries me these days? It's not reckless drivers flying down the highway. It's not teenagers glued to their phones behind the wheel. What concerns me most is when responsible, experienced drivers, people who have been safely driving for 40, 50, even 60 years, suddenly find themselves blindsided by rules they never saw coming. And right now, that's exactly what's happening at DMV offices across this country. 3 significant rule changes have quietly started rolling out. And if you're 65 or older, these changes could affect how you renew your license, how often you have to visit the DMV, and in some cases, whether you can keep driving at all. Most people won't hear about these changes until they're already standing at the DMV counter, confused, frustrated, and sometimes sent home without their license renewed. And that's the last place you want to learn about new rules. Because when you're unprepared at the DMV, small issues quickly become big problems. Missing paperwork, unexpected tests, or new requirements can turn what should be a 20-minute visit into a stressful day that ends with more appointments, more forms, and more waiting. I've talked to a gentleman from Ohio who had been driving since he was 16, no tickets, no accidents. And when he showed up to renew, new requirements caught him completely off guard. He had to reschedule, see a specialist, and it cost him an extra $200 out of pocket. Stories like that are exactly why I want to walk you through these 3 changes today, explain why they're happening, and most importantly, show you how to prepare so they don't catch you off guard. But before we get into the first rule, you need to understand why states are making these changes right now. Over the past decade, the number of drivers over the age of 65 has grown faster than almost any other group on the road. Millions of Americans are staying active, healthy, and independent well into their 70s and 80s, which is genuinely a good thing. Older drivers tend to drive fewer miles, avoid risky situations, and follow traffic laws more carefully than younger drivers. But at the same time, data from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has shown a concerning trend. Drivers aged 65 and older are involved in a higher percentage of intersection crashes and pedestrian incidents compared to younger age groups. This isn't about blame. It's about biology. As we age, our eyes may not adjust as quickly to changing light conditions, reaction times can slow slightly, and certain medical conditions can influence focus and coordination. State lawmakers responded to that data, and what we're dealing with today is the result. From California to Florida, from Texas to New York, these rule changes are rolling out in waves, some states leading the charge, others following suit. And because we live in a federal system where each state sets its own licensing policies, the details vary depending on where you live. That's exactly why relying on secondhand information can get you into trouble. Now let's get into the first rule change. And this is the one that's quietly surprising the most people at DMV offices right now. It has to do with vision screening. If you've renewed a license before, you know the routine. You walk up to a machine, cover one eye, read a few numbers or letters, and in under a minute, you're done. For decades, that simple test was enough. But in many states, that basic check is no longer considered sufficient for drivers over 65. 23 states have now implemented what they're calling enhanced vision screening protocols specifically for older drivers, and the difference is significant. Instead of checking only how clearly you see straight ahead, these states are now testing multiple aspects of vision that matter for safe driving. That includes peripheral vision, how well you can see objects outside your direct line of sight, which matters when a pedestrian steps off a curb or a vehicle approaches from the side. Some states are also evaluating depth perception, which helps determine how accurately you judge distances between vehicles. And perhaps most important of all, many places are now assessing something called contrast sensitivity. That might sound technical, but it's something you experience every time you drive. Contrast sensitivity is your ability to distinguish objects from their background, spotting a pedestrian wearing dark clothing at dusk, or seeing a gray car against a cloudy sky. As people age, contrast sensitivity often declines gradually, even when standard vision tests appear completely normal. The NHTSA has linked contrast sensitivity issues to over 20% of nighttime accidents involving seniors. States are also evaluating glare recovery, how quickly your eyes adjust after oncoming headlights temporarily blind you. These aren't abstract measurements. They reflect real-world scenarios that happen every single time you drive after dark. Here's where things get tricky. The old standard was 20/40 vision in at least one eye. Most states are keeping that baseline, but they're now adding these additional measurements on top of it. Peripheral vision may need to reach at least 140 degrees combined, compared to the looser 120-degree standard in older protocols. Depth perception tests could involve identifying which of two objects is closer in a stereoscopic viewer, and failing that could flag underlying issues like cataracts or macular degeneration. If you fail any component of this enhanced screening, you won't walk out with a renewed license that day. Instead, you'll receive what's called a conditional approval, meaning you have 30 to 90 days, depending on your state, to visit a licensed optometrist or ophthalmologist, get a complete eye exam, and have that doctor submit a medical vision report directly to the DMV. That means extra appointments, extra time, and extra money out of pocket, because Medicare doesn't always cover vision exams required for licensing rather than medical necessity. A standard comprehensive eye exam can run $100 to $250, and specialized tests like visual field mapping can add another $150 on top of that. One woman from Arizona discovered she had mild glaucoma she didn't even know about. It showed up in the peripheral test. She ended up on drops that actually improved her vision, but it delayed her renewal by a full month. For someone like Bob from Texas, early cataracts caused him to fail the contrast sensitivity portion. He got surgery covered by Medicare since it qualified as medically necessary, and now he drives confidently again. Those stories show something important. These rules, while frustrating, can actually catch health issues early and lead to better outcomes. So what do you do with this information right now? If your license is coming up for renewal in the next 6 to 12 months, don't wait until the last minute. Get yourself to an eye doctor now and ask specifically about peripheral vision, contrast sensitivity, and night visibility. Finding out about a problem early gives you time to fix it with updated glasses, surgery, or other treatment. Finding out at the DMV counter puts you under deadline pressure with a stack of paperwork and no good options. And consider this. Some insurance plans through AARP or Medicare Advantage offer vision riders that cover portions of these exams. Call your provider and ask specifically about DMV-required vision assessments. You might be surprised what qualifies for coverage. Now, as significant as these enhanced screenings are, they're only the beginning, because the second rule change affecting older drivers is creating even more frustration, especially for people who are used to renewing their license from the comfort of home. For years, millions of Americans relied on something incredibly convenient. They didn't have to go to the DMV at all. In many states, drivers could simply renew online or by mail. No waiting in line, no crowded office, no sitting for hours. You received a notice, filled out a simple form, paid the fee, and a new license arrived in the mail. That convenience is now disappearing for a growing number of older drivers. At least 18 states have now mandated that anyone 65 or older must appear in person for every license renewal, with no exceptions for online or mail-in options in most cases. In California, drivers 70 and older must renew in person every 5 years, with mandatory vision screening right at the office. In Texas, once you reach 79, it's in person only, with renewal cycles shortening to every 2 years for drivers 85 and older. States like Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Arizona follow similar patterns. Alaska requires in-person renewal for drivers 69 and older. Arizona mandates it for drivers 65 and older every 5 years, compared to every 12 years for younger drivers. Imagine receiving your renewal notice in the mail like you always have. You sit down at the computer, log into the DMV website, start the process, and the system tells you your renewal must now be completed in person. What used to take 10 minutes now requires planning an entire day around a DMV visit. And depending on where you live, that visit might not be quick or easy. Some people live 20 minutes from the nearest office. Others drive 40, 50, or 60 miles. And in rural areas, that office might only be open a few days each week. Then factor in wait times between checking in, verifying documents, completing forms, taking vision tests, and getting a new photograph. What seemed like a simple renewal can turn into 2 or 3 exhausting hours. But the real challenge with these in-person requirements isn't just the time. It's the documentation. Most DMV offices now require multiple forms of identification and residency verification. That typically means your current license, proof of residency, such as a recent utility bill or bank statement dated within the last 60 to 90 days, a document verifying your social security number, and sometimes additional identification like a passport or birth certificate. And here's where people consistently run into problems. Some DMVs only accept paper copies of certain documents, not digital versions on your phone. Others are strict about the date printed on a utility bill. People have waited in line for 2 hours, reached the counter, and been turned away because their cell phone bill wasn't accepted as proof of address, or their utility bill was digital instead of printed. That's an entire day wasted, and then starting the whole process over again. There's another aspect of these in-person visits that most people don't realize is happening. DMV employees are now trained to do more than process paperwork during your visit. They conduct what's called an informal driver capability observation, paying attention to how you interact during the renewal process. They may notice how easily you read and complete forms, whether you seem confused by instructions, or how steadily you walk from the entrance to the counter. This doesn't mean DMV staff are trying to judge people unfairly, but if something raises a concern about a driver's ability to safely operate a vehicle, they have the authority to request additional evaluations. That could mean a written knowledge test even if you haven't taken one in decades, a road skills test, a referral to your doctor for medical clearance, or enrollment in a driver improvement course before your license can be issued. The best way to handle this is not with anxiety, but with preparation. Bring all your documents organized in a labeled folder. Answer questions clearly and confidently. Take your time filling out forms. There's no prize for speed. If you use a cane, walker, or wheelchair, use it without hesitation. Demonstrating that you move carefully and safely is far better than struggling and raising unnecessary concern. Book an appointment online if your state offers it, go early in the morning or midweek when lines are shorter, and bring a family member or friend if possible to help with forms and provide support. Now, as significant as these first two changes are, there's one more rule that is causing the most confusion and the most anxiety. Because this third change introduces something into the license renewal process that most people never expected to deal with at the DMV, your doctor. In 14 states, drivers above a certain age, usually 70 or 75, may now be required to submit medical certification confirming they are physically and mentally fit to drive. And this isn't a casual note from your physician saying, everything looks fine. The DMV provides a specific medical evaluation form that your doctor must complete in detail. That form addresses your physical condition, your medications, any diagnoses that could affect your driving ability, and their professional opinion on whether you are medically fit to safely operate a vehicle. What makes this complicated is that your doctor isn't simply signing off on your general well-being. They're evaluating specific conditions that states have flagged as potential risks based on NHTSA and CDC data. Diabetes, especially if you're on insulin with a risk of hypoglycemic episodes that could cause sudden dizziness behind the wheel. Cardiovascular issues, if you've had a heart attack, stroke, or uncontrolled high blood pressure. Seizure disorders. Sleep apnea, which can lead to dangerous daytime drowsiness. Any form of cognitive decline. Even arthritis that affects your ability to turn the wheel or check blind spots. Medications that cause drowsiness, certain painkillers, antihistamines, anxiety medications, must be noted on the form. And here's what makes this feel so high stakes. When your doctor signs that form, they're putting their professional license on the line. They're not going to rubber stamp it just to be polite. If they have legitimate concerns based on your medical history, they are ethically and legally obligated to document them. This could lead to outcomes you didn't expect. Driving restrictions like daytime only or no highway driving, a shorter renewal period with required follow-ups, or in serious cases, a hold on renewal until specific issues are addressed. The rules vary significantly by state. California may require a physician's report for drivers 70 and older only if flagged during an in-person visit, though it's becoming more routine. Florida requires it for drivers 80 and older, or those with certain conditions, often at every renewal. Illinois mandates it for drivers between 81 and 86 every 4 years, then every 2 years after that. States like Virginia and Oregon have similar thresholds around age 75. A doctor visit specifically for the medical certification form can cost $50 to $150 if not covered by insurance, plus any additional tests. An EKG for heart concerns can add another $100 or more. But here's a tip. Medicare often covers preventive aspects of these visits if they're framed as a wellness check. Ask your doctor to code it that way when possible. So here's how you navigate this with confidence. Schedule a dedicated appointment with your primary care physician specifically for this purpose. Don't tack it on to the end of a routine physical. Download the state-specific form from your DMV website ahead of time and bring it to that appointment. Go through it line by line with your doctor. Be completely honest about your driving habits, any close calls you've had, and any moments where you felt uncertain behind the wheel. Your doctor cannot help you or protect your license without the full picture. If your doctor raises concerns, don't get defensive. Get curious. Ask what specifically worries them and what steps might address it. Sometimes it's as simple as adjusting the timing of a medication to avoid peak drowsiness during driving hours or switching to a non-drowsy alternative. For sleep apnea, a CPAP machine can dramatically improve alertness. For cognitive flags, occupational therapy focused on driving skills or structured brain training may make a meaningful difference. And remember, many states allow appeals or second opinions if the initial form leads to restrictions. Don't hesitate to pursue that option. Now let's bring all three of these together, because understanding the full picture is what gives you the upper hand. These three rule changes, enhanced vision screenings, mandatory in-person renewals, and medical certification requirements, are not uniform across every state. Some states have all three fully in place. Others have one or two with more on the way. But the direction is clear. The trend is accelerating, driven by rising senior populations and safety data showing these measures reduce accidents in specific high-risk scenarios. Here's your action plan. First, go directly to your state's official DMV website right now, not a third-party site, not a neighbor's advice. Search for senior driver renewal requirements and look specifically for 2025 and 2026 updates. Note the exact requirements for your age bracket, print them, or take a screenshot. Second, if your renewal is within the next 12 months, book a comprehensive eye exam immediately. Ask about peripheral vision, contrast sensitivity, and night driving ability specifically. Third, if medical certification may be required in your state, schedule that dedicated appointment with your doctor well in advance, not the week before your DMV visit. Gather your documents now. Current license, proof of residency dated within 90 days, social security verification, and a passport or birth certificate if your state requires it. Put everything in a labeled folder and keep it somewhere you'll remember. Check AARP's driver safety website or your state DMV for exact document lists. Some offices are very specific about acceptable formats. Also think practically about the day itself. Schedule your DMV appointment for a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday morning. Those tend to be the least crowded times. Bring a family member or trusted friend if possible. They can help you stay calm, assist with forms, and serve as an extra set of eyes on the paperwork. If English isn't your first language or you have hearing challenges, contact your DMV in advance to request accommodations. Many offices offer interpreters or large print forms, but you have to ask ahead of time. And arrive rested. A good night's sleep before your appointment sounds simple, but being mentally sharp and physically comfortable makes a real difference in how smoothly everything goes. I know some of this feels frustrating. If you've driven safely for decades without a single serious incident, being asked to jump through extra hoops can feel like an intrusion. That feeling is completely valid, but consider what's actually at stake. Driving is one of the most important freedoms you have. It means independence, visiting family, running your own errands, living life on your own terms. These rules aren't designed to strip that away. They're designed to protect it by making sure every driver on the road remains capable of driving safely. And the single most powerful thing you can do to protect your independence is exactly what you're doing right now, getting informed before you walk through that DMV door. Because when you understand the rules in advance, you walk in confident, organized, and ready. And that makes the entire process far smoother than it would ever be otherwise.